Hello, welcome back. In this video, we're going to dissect a prefab and I'll show you how we can make our own custom one. So let's take a prefab from our prefabs library that's loaded in the prefab tab here. So search 3-room single story. So let's go actually. Then grab one of them and place it down. So I did explain this in another video. A prefab is just a collection of multiple objects or entities, and they're just grouped together and saved into a file which are easily accessible, and you can drag them out into the level and place them where you want. So for example, we use them for houses, and we'll have multiple variations of each one. And already have all the furniture set up, all the gameplay mechanics set up, and also item spawn cones, etc. So what we're going to do is we're going to dissect this one, and then hopefully I can show how we can do our own one or our own custom one. You can edit prefab files pretty easily. You can just open them by clicking the Open tab, and then that allows you to select any element that's contained within the prefab. You can close it, and that locks it again. For this one, we're going to extract all, and this will extract all the objects out of the prefab and just place it as just objects into the level itself. So we'll do extract all. Yes. And as you can see, these are all the objects that make up this particular prefab. And so there's different things on this. One is the outside building, and then inside we have all the little different props, all the different decals, and different textures to surfaces. We also have a reverb area which goes around the house, sound, and we also have another one which is a nested prefab I'll extract from. And this is the DWS system, so the powered houses system. And that just works with just a volume around the outside, which is a house volume. But I'll show you how we can create these from scratch so you can customize your own. But that's basically the inner workings of this particular prefab. So what we want is we want a building. So I'm going to try to find the same building. I think it's called 3-room single story. And these are all the different elements of this particular building. So what we do want is we do want the inside. We do want the outside as well. So the outside walls, and I think there's window frames on this one. Got the roof. Now what I'm doing here to snap them all together is use this button up here, align selection to object. Since all the pivots are the same for these building pieces, all just snap together. You can also just apply the grid snapping and make sure they're on the same grid, but let's hit this way. There's the wall damage decals, which we snap, and also woodwork, which is all the window frames. We snap, then we want the garage. We want the windows. Where are the windows? Roof, porch, outside walls, porch, inside glass. Glass as well. This one has the porch on it. I can make a different variation that doesn't have this porch, but we can include it as well. Raise them a bit. Actually, it's quite fine. So that's the building. So when I'm doing the prefab itself, I don't want to select this building anymore because I might be accidentally move it during the creation of the prefab. So I want to just freeze this building. So when I'm working on the inside, I don't accidentally select something or delete something that I don't want to be deleted. So if I press the F key or the F button up here, I'll press the F key, that will freeze it. Now I can't select it at all. To unfreeze, it's Control F. And you get this box. It says you want to unfreeze all objects. You click yes, and now I can select it again. So select the objects you want. You can either click the freeze button, I'll freeze it. That's what I want for now. Okay. Now we can just populate our house. So maybe I want to find a sofa. I get that from the brush tool, the sofa, and we can make whatever we want to put in here. We all want a kitchen. I think. Oh, kitchens are kitchens are annoying to set up. The kitchen set. This is the newest one we made. Kitchens are annoying to set up because there's so many pieces to them. On 90-degree angle. I want this cupboard here, and I can copy it along the y-axis. And maybe we want a different cupboard here. Now, a quick way of, like, if I was doing this kitchen, what I would do is I would just copy this, which I did over here, and then I'd scroll down in the properties on the side here on the roll-up bar, and I have all of these. I have this window here which has the file for all the kitchen set. So maybe I want counter B, then counter C, no, counter corner. Then we put the counter corner in the corner. Kind of get the idea that I'm switching out the models here to this particular group set of models. Now I want this perfectly aligned to this. I want this like that. I could do it by eye, but sometimes you get some Z fighting and sometimes you get it just clips through the object, but we want it perfect. So if we go to vertex snapping, which is up here, which is this magnet, and that will show you all the vertices. We can just select a vertice and hold on click and drag and snap it to same vertice on the other object. And now that line here is absolutely perfect in line with these two counters. So again, let's copy one over, get counter B, and we can vertex snap it here. And maybe we want some doors on it. So these are all named appropriately. So I can align it to the object. And it gives me a rough place for it to go. Put the door on it. I think these are counter A doors, and there's probably 2 doors for these ones. Counter A, door left. Copy it again, and then door right. Put it there. And I think it's the same for this one. This is also a counter A. We got the doors on there, and we got the counters all perfectly aligned. Now, the good thing about this and how modular this kitchen set is that I could, off angle snapping, I could just open up maybe a couple doors, or maybe this one's come off its hinges, this one's slightly open and a bit broken, and you get more of a unique look to it. There's also a good thing with this kitchen set is, and this comes with some other objects which are recolorable, is if we go to the material properties of this, we go to the material editor here, and then we click on the object, and we get properties from selection. Click that, and that's taken us to the kitchen set. Now there's different types of kitchens here. Then we've got the oak one, and that changes the texture. We got this one, so you can get different styles of kitchen if we want. These all use this, all the doors, all the whole set uses the same materials. So you can get different styles if you want. If you don't want the normal style that's default. And there's some objects that do have this, and some objects in our brush set that are already separated. Some that you have to go through the material editor with. Maybe we want a fridge in here, but we want it openable. So we want people to be able to open it. So we need a DWS fridge. So we need to go to our Prefab tab, fridge, and I believe maybe we'll get the fridge old. Now this is a prefab with an actual working door for the fridge. It's already set up for you, so you don't have to set up the door for it. So there's another use for prefabs, is to a collection of props. This is just the fridge back and an interactive door. Maybe we want to add a front door to our building as well, but we want to use one that can actually be opened by the player. So usually under brush, we search for DWS. Anything with DWS in its name is interactive. So it's a real pickle. It's really like, it can be difficult to find what you want sometimes because there's so much stuff. I'm pretty sure if I go back to my 3-room single story folder, yeah, we have DWS back door, we have the DWS front door as well. I'm going to put the front door in, and that's placed there. We want to keep it in a closed state. And this door will rotate on its pivot point here, so you can kind of test what it would look like by just rotating it on its pivot. Try and get it in the door, like so. Now, when I jump into game in the editor, these doors will not work. It's when it's on the actual game server and it's running that it replaces these doors with entity doors. It's just the way that we convert static meshes into physical entities, and that way it saves a lot of processing power on the server, because it doesn't have to calculate all these different entities in the world. It just calculates brushes. So it's kind of a semi-sophisticated system that we've done to work around some of the limitations of our networking. So you won't be able to test this in the editor like this, but you can sort of test like how it would look in game by just opening and closing the door with the rotate tool. So yeah, maybe we want to do a power volume on this, and we need to create one of these, which is again another game volume. So we go game custom, game volume, and then let's define the edges of the house that we want. You can turn on grid snapping to make this, you know, these lines straighter or whatever, and you can make this any shape you want. Let's sink it in the ground a little. Let's change the volume class to house volume. Okay. Yeah, there's a height here, so we can change that to, I don't know, 10 maybe. Oops. Maybe like 5, 6. Well, there you go. So that's now created the house volume. So anything inside this volume that has anything to do with powered houses, light switches, cookers, microwaves, this house volume will kind of collect them all into one. If that makes sense, I hope that makes sense. So we need an electrical box and a working cooker and stuff to put in here, and this house volume defines whatever's in there to be part of that house and that generator and that power source. So in theory, you could put a house volume over an entire town and put an electrical box which you hook a generator up to, and then it will power up the entire town. It just powers up whatever in this volume. So if we go, I think it's DWS elect. That's the electric stove. I guess we can just put that in right now. That's the interactive electric stove. I don't remember what this object's called though. Okay. This one is elect, like that, or elect. Yes. You know what? I'm going to copy it, and then I'll find the path name from there. I'm going to put that onto the side of my house. So this one is, okay, I was close. Objects, props, underground, electrical boxes, and then it's elect small. And this object is the one that you would link a generator to, and you can only place generators within this house volume. So when the generator's connected up to that and it's turned on, and then it will power up anything that is in this volume. So for our example, it would be the electric stove. We could add a DWS light switch, which we can put on the wall. And how light switches work is, I think it's DWS lamp, light, no. You have to do a bit of digging sometimes. But I'm going to copy it from here. It's DWS ceiling light. Okay. Go back to our house. So if I put a ceiling light in, now there's a certain radius for this light switch. So I don't have to link anything to this light for this light switch to activate this light. What it is if it's close to this light switch, it will know. It will automatically link itself to it. So when you use this light switch with the generator on outside and it's within this house volume, it will turn on this light. And that's how basically you set up your own powered houses. But I mean, if you were going to make your own prefab, you could even extract all mine, delete all the objects inside, and just copy it and create your own as well. One way of doing it. So yeah, and I'm not going to go too much more into it. We can do the reverb as well, actually. That might be quite useful. These aren't super important though, but you can. It's quite nice to have them for just for different sounds and excluding sounds. So you make a shape, and we need to go through all the walls on the house. And find the height of the house. And then we need to create a audio area entity. And we need to just so what we did is create a shape, went around the house inside the walls, and created an audio area entity. And this just changes the environment. So this will be room small, for example. And then we can change the obstruction to single ray. And then we can click on our shape again that we made and pick it there. And that will create a reverb inside this building to a room small. So when you're stepping, your footsteps will sound like you're in a small room. And then when you step outside, you'll be back on the outside reverb. So it sounds like you're outside. It's just a simple way to like change. It's pretty much a simple way just to change sounds in your level to make them sound a bit more detailed. You don't have to use them, but pretty cool. So yeah, now that I've decorated the house, I mean, there's not even a picture frame on the wall. There's a picture frame on the wall. That's a picture of Graham. Okay, it's not a very well decorated house, but we'll go for it. Now we want to unfreeze our objects again. So unfreeze or Control F, and then I can select the building again. And what we want to do first is prepare the building for rain occluders, which means when it rains, the game knows where it's raining, so it doesn't rain inside. So what we need to do is go to brushes. So we go up here, it says select all. We want to change that to brushes, and we want to drag over our building we just made. And then you see in the brush parameters, there's one called rain occluder. We want to turn that off. And then we want to select the roof of our building, and we want the rain occluder on. For some other buildings it's the roof, some buildings just the outside model, but you want everything on the inside to have that rain occluder turned off. So you're basically, the roof is like an umbrella for the rest of this. If you have it turned on the inside or any of the props in here, it will rain through your ceiling, which is kind of a visual bug that you've probably seen in the past during our early access. Okay, so now that we've got the house, we set up the rain occluder, we've powered the house with a house volume, we've added reverbs, we put a bit of furniture in it, we've used some DWS doors. Now we want to package it into a prefab that we can put in our prefab library. So what we need to do is go to here, the database view. If it's not here for you, it's view, open, and open plain view, and this is database. Yeah, database view. Yeah, and that will give you this window. We go to the prefabs library. If you want to make your own custom one, you can add a library. So my houses. Click OK. And we want to make a new prefab file. So we've made this, my houses. Then we can click add new item. And we can set up groups so we can, you know, kind of organize it a bit better. So this one will be 3-room resident. We'll call it 3-room res. And the name is 3-room 01. Click enter. That's made our prefab file here. Now we need to add our objects to this file. What we do is we select them. I need to change that back again because we got brushes still. We won't select all again. I want to select all the buildings we want for our prefab, and then right click here in the database view and click replace prefab with selected objects. On that. Now you can see it's grouped all of them together. For good practice, we want to move this pivot point. So when you select it, this pivot point should be the origin of the building rather than the automatic one it sets up. So what we can do is to change that, we can click open, and then pivot mode is off. Click that. Now it says pivot mode is on, and then click on align to selected object, and let's click on our roof. And now let's move the pivot point to the origin of the house. Now we can turn that off. We can close our prefab again. There it is. And that's really useful if you're doing vehicles or anything else where you want an object to be the origin of it all. It just makes it easier to place and rotate when you're putting them into your level. So if we save that, there's also a save button here in the database view. We can close that now. Go on our prefabs, click reload. I think my house on there, and there's our prefab file. And there we go. We just drag it out, and there's the prefab we created. Now, if you don't want to make your own prefabs, or you just want to edit the ones that I've made for the game, you know, we can just select any of them in our prefab library here. So for example, what can we use for example? Use another residential house. Let's use this little one. It's quite a small house. Put that down here. I don't know. Say we want to change this prefab. We can open it and we can change, like, I don't want this spawn cone here. I can delete that, or I can move this rubbish, and then I can press save, and that will update the prefab. What if I want to add a new object to this as well? So if I just prefab, let's select this and let's close it. Make sure that's closed. So I want to add a new object to this. So maybe I want to add, well, I want to add a gnome to it. I want to add this creepy gnome, this prefab. So right now, this gnome I've just placed in here, this prefab, are completely separate. What we do is we click on the prefab, we click on the objects we want to add. So for example, this gnome, we go prefab, add selected objects to prefab up here. So prefabs, add selected objects to prefab, and you click that. And now if I move the prefab, gnome is part of it. And you can do this with like multiple, and then select them. And you select the prefab as well, and click prefab, add selected objects to prefab. And there's multiple there. I don't think I explained it, but if I wanted to add another prefab to a prefab, so such as the fridge, which is a prefab, we want this prefab within a prefab. Inception prefab. So we want this prefab in a prefab. We so for example, this fridge, we click on the prefab that we have, then we click pick and attach, and then we can click on, we can hold spacebar if it's too difficult to click on it, but we want to click on this. So now that's added a prefab within a prefab. So that's really good if you want to make interactive props or a collection of rubbish piles or garbage bags or something into a prefab, and you want to put those into a house or a building. You would, you know, just pick and attach and select it, and that's a prefab within a prefab. Now, benefits of using prefabs: if you have multiple instances of the same prefab, so I've got 2 of the same houses, so the same prefab. I don't know, say, well, now this fridge blocks the door. I don't want the fridge to block the door on all these houses. I can click open and I can delete it. Done. And now if I look at the other instance of this prefab, it's also removed it there. So these two are linked because they're the same prefab file. This is good if a player gets stuck behind a chair or a piece of furniture or something. You can find the prefab that has that issue and you can fix it in that one house, and it will update it will update all the buildings that use the same prefab for it. So that's a very good benefit for these, and I do recommend using them for every single building that you use and collection of objects you use. Just a small note before I end this video, I almost forgot. Once you've saved your prefab in the database view in the editor, if you go to the root folder of the mod SDK, go game SDK, go prefabs, there'll be a prefabs folder, and this is where your prefab XMLs are. And you can send these to other people, and they can open them as well in the database view. So if you go to database, prefabs library, click open, you'll be able to find your custom prefab files in here and open them. So you can share those with other level designers or other people, or people who you're collaborating with to have your prefabs that you've created. It's not necessary to upload these to Steam Workshop because when you package a level, when it puts in a package file, it doesn't use these prefab files, XMLs. It actually extracts them into single objects to use into the level. So these aren't necessary when you pack up a level for Workshop, but they're there if you want to share them between other people or edit them in the XML view, which is a bit crazy if you ask me, but but that's where they save them, and that's how you can share them. Okay, and thank you for listening again.